You want the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
You can't handle the truth!
Well, we're giving you the Michigan Sports Truth, the show that reveals facts, truth, research, and statistics and never messes around. We lay down the entire truth about everything regarding your Detroit and Michigan sports teams, no matter if it's good or bad. No junk, no entertainment, no homerism, no coddling, no pop culture, no opinions, no shilling, and no fluff. Head over to our website at MichiganSportsTruth.com, follow us on Twitter at Michigan_Truth, and like our Facebook page, The Michigan Sports Truth. The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
Episode 316 of the Week in Review is now in session. Taylor Phillips, along with Buck Geno. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Follow Buck Geno on Twitter at Buck Geno III, triple I, 3 I's for Roman numerals. Got 3 teams to cover for this Week in Review edition. And they are the Lions, Pistons, and Tigers, and we're going to start this time with the Lions.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions!
New head coach Matt Patricia, like we witnessed last week, was accused of sexual assault in 1996, but was not prosecuted. From what we learned, the latest information, his accuser dropped the charges in October of 1997 because she, quote, couldn't handle the stress, unquote. So she just decided to let it all go. So that was actually her decision.
Oh, man!
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot to dive into this situation. The first thing I'll say before we really get to diving into all the nitty-gritty about it is that anytime that you have something like this that is perceived as new information, it surprises me, because when you're talking about something that happened in 1996, it took Deadspin all of 30 seconds to do a search on Matt Patricia through the LexisNexis database, which is widely used by people, especially in background checks. And it didn't take them very long at all to find a lot of the details about this case. So, that said, there's a lot to digest here for the Lions. I know that they have come out publicly in support of Matt Patricia, and they feel that the process is over. There's a lot of people that feel there needs to be more scrutiny into exactly what happened. And I think that for Matt Patricia, it's hard for me to believe that this never came up with him and Bob Quinn. They worked together for 11 years when Matt Patricia was first brought to New England. Now, that they have day-to-day contact? No, but as they both progressed through the ranks, obviously they became closer in contact and probably would have had a little bit more interpersonal communication. And it's really hard for me to believe that this never came up. Now, I'm no law expert. I don't have a law degree. So I rely on other people to do that for me. But what it boils down to is that Massachusetts law states you cannot ask about any prior convictions that did not result in you cannot talk about any prior arrest that did not result in a conviction. And because Matt Patricia was a resident of Massachusetts, even though he was being hired by a Michigan company, and that's in the Detroit Lions, he has to be treated under Massachusetts law, so they couldn't ask about that. Now, that said, during the interview process, and I don't know if Matt Patricia just thought that I don't want to say he'd get away with it, but you had to think at some point during the interview, somebody would have said, is there anything that we're going to have to prepare for that you haven't told us yet? Is there anything that you want to tell us about anything in your past that we're going to have to address? Now, that goes back to Bob Quinn, because he's the one that's making the initial decision on hiring Matt Patricia. Did they fast-track him? Probably. Did they go through all the proper steps? I would imagine so.
Definitely.
But at the same time, it's just odd that 3 months after he's hired, that this is now coming to light for mass media consumption. Obviously, there are other people that know about this, but you're talking about something that happened in 1996. It doesn't mean that it just goes away. And I think that Matt Patricia probably could have been a little bit more forthcoming. I think that the Lions probably did as much due diligence as they were required to do. That doesn't necessarily mean what they should have, but what they were required to do. It really boils down to the fact that this case is over. Obviously, the victim felt that she did not want to come forward and go through the trial. And you can try to dive into that as much as you can, but until anybody knows who that is and gets a hold of that information and talks to her, they'll be able to get that information. And it's also a little bit telling that person hasn't come forward. With all the other information that's been put forth, they haven't been able to find out who that is. Now, you would think in today's society, with the trends of the Me Too movement and all these other things that are going on, that somebody might be able to figure out who was the other party in this case, but they haven't been able to do so. So it leads me to believe that maybe she doesn't want to. Maybe she doesn't want to go through it again. Maybe she doesn't want to relive that incident. Maybe, there's a lot of things that could be maybes. But there's only a couple people that know exactly what happened. And Matt Patricia is one of them. And the victim, or alleged victim, is the other. And right now we're getting one side of the story. And they're pointing to the fact that the case was, even though it got to a grand jury and he was indicted, that the trial didn't happen and the case was dismissed for lack of a witness. So you put all that together and you come up with a real bad situation for the Lions, because now they're in really just an untenable position. If they defend Patricia, you're going to have the people that say that they're trying to hide things, that they're just trying to get him in place as the head coach, that Bob Quinn skipped a lot of steps, and that they really didn't care about what happened in the past because it's in the past. And if they let him go or they subject him to discipline, you're going to have the other side where it says, well, hey, wait a minute. This case was thrown out due to the fact the victim did not want to go through the trial. And so at that point, we feel that this is over with. And so it's a real bad situation, and there's a lot of viewpoints on this, but what it boils down to is that there's nothing that can be done at this point if the person that alleged the assault can't corroborate the story that they originally came forward with back in 1996. I think that Matt Patricia is probably going to have to talk about this more and more, and it's going to overshadow the fact that now in his first year as Lions head coach, he's already got some things going on outside of football that he's going to have to deal with, and this may go away. We know that the news cycle for 2018 tends to be real brief, and unless something else is unearthed that gives credence to the victim's original allegation that there was an assault, there's not going to be really much that can be done. And it's unfortunate for Matt Patricia because he's going to have to deal with this, and if he's going to have to answer questions, that's just something that's going to come with the territory. But there's just not much else to go on other than the reports that have already been found. And Dave Burkett did a real nice job in his piece about why the Lions would have missed it. And at the same time, showing why Matt Patricia has some fault to bear because he didn't think this was worth mentioning in a job interview. Now, again, when you talk about the law aspect, because of the way that the laws are written for different states and all of those things, he probably didn't feel he had to because in his mind this was over. He was indicted but never brought to trial. And the case was dismissed. So in his mind, he probably doesn't want to talk about it a whole lot. And he doesn't want to have to relive that. But you're going to have a lot of people speculating as to why it was thrown out, why the victim didn't want to come forward. Back in 1996, it was a lot different than it is now as far as how these cases were treated and how they were carried out. So, because it's so murky at this point, it really it's hard to just say what ended up. Did Matt Patricia actually do that and got lucky because the defendant the plaintiff decided that she didn't want to go through the trial? Or was it a baseless accusation and she decided that she didn't want to carry it out any further because she didn't want to have to tell her side of the story and bring other things to light that a defense lawyer would have tried to poke holes in? So, it's a real mess. And like I said, the news cycle tends to be brief in today's age. And unless something new is brought to light and more information is brought forward, because obviously people are going to be looking into this now much more deeply than they had before, that could happen. But the Lions also have a job to do, and that is to prepare their football team. And I think that this is just something that's going to be in their rearview mirror until it finally either A, goes away, or B, they're faced to deal with the discovery of more information. And if that does happen, they'll have to deal with it when that time comes. So I'm not going to sit here and say that Matt Patricia is right. I'm not going to sit here and say that he's wrong, because there's just not enough information at hand right now to say, yeah, well, Matt Patricia got away with one when he was a young kid, and he did something real stupid, but he didn't end up getting in trouble for it, and vice versa. I'm not going to say that he was wrong, because maybe it wasn't an assault. Like I said, it's just there's just too many holes right now for us to say, well, this is exactly what happened, and Matt Patricia should be fired, or this person that made the allegations was lying. You tend to want to believe Matt Patricia because he's the one that's in the public eye, and he's the one that's telling his side of the story. So you're obviously going to be biased in that way because you're not getting the other side. You're not seeing somebody talk about what he did and all the evidence that was brought forth. Now, there has been reports of some witnesses that were ready to testify, and also medical evidence, which is kind of an ambiguous term because nobody knows exactly what that was, because it never went to trial. So that evidence probably gets thrown out, probably lost in the shuffle, because they don't need it for trial, and the statute of limitations has far been exceeded, so they can't use it anymore. And so a lot of the statements and a lot of the witnesses probably, I don't want to say they don't exist, because obviously they do, but in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of those who hold the records, they don't exist because those things have been redacted. Those can't be used anymore. it's just a real bad situation for the Lions because they have to deal with this one way or the other. And I think that, for any sort of closure to happen with this, I think that Matt Patricia is going to have to just weather the storm, continue to say what he's saying, and it's really up to him. It's really, he's the only one right now that anybody can talk to that knows exactly what happened. Because he's the one that's going in front of the media and saying, I didn't do it. He's just thrown out. There's nothing else to be seen here. So, it's tough. And like I said, there's just not enough information out there at this point to say, maybe he is lying or maybe he is holding us back from people because he doesn't want this to get out. But now that it has gotten out, he's also going to rely on the fact that the case was never brought to trial. And by default, he is not guilty. So, it's going to be one of those things, like I said, that's going to hang on. And unless new information is brought to light, I think will probably end up going away simply because nobody else is saying anything other than his viewpoint. The Lions are behind him. And
Bill Belichick is behind him, too.
Bill Belichick, I mean, there's just, right now you're only getting one side, and that's everybody saying that Matt Patricia was innocent. The case is thrown out. He wasn't convicted. And that's where they're going to leave it. So, I know it kind of stinks for people that want some sort of closure, but right now that's all there's going to be is speculation and hearsay, because that's all that's left. So, it's one of those things that you can't get away from because it's always going to be there. Somebody will ask about it. And there's probably people that are right now at this very minute trying to find out more information. Because that's their job.
Mm-hmm.
But if they can't, then you kind of got to let it go. As much as you'd like to put somebody's feet to the fire, the legal process, regardless of the atmosphere and the culture that was around in 1996, the ship has sailed on that case. And unless somebody else wants to come forward with additional information, this is going to kind of have to, I don't want to say get swept under the rug because that's the wrong sort of term, but this is just going to kind of have to finally bleed away and find its way into the sunset if nothing else is found out. Because what is somebody going to do? Is somebody going to dig up more information that shows that Matt Patricia was the benefit of a prosecutor applying pressure to a victim and fighting or coercing them to not testify? We won't know. So it's just one of those. It's a thing that you can't just ignore, especially in today's
world.
Attitudes toward assault and everything. Not that it should have been marginalized before, but it's certainly a lot more to the fore now with all the incidents, not just in sports, but just in society as a whole. And, people want to do their due diligence. And the reason that this is coming to the fore is because I think, in simple terms, the Lions probably just didn't pay attention to it, and Matt Patricia didn't say anything about it. So, what are you going to say at this point? There's no other information to be had. They just can't continue to ask these questions because you're going to get the same answers. So, unless you find somebody else willing to tell you a different side of the story, you're going to keep getting the same answers from the same people. And to continue to belabor the point, I think, is an exercise in futility. But if somebody wants to do their own investigation and they want to find out more, then they probably will. And if they don't find anything, then we'll also hear about that as well. So the business of football still has to be paramount in their minds for the organization, and that's what they're going to be doing. But it is something that is just going to linger until it finally fades away, until people get tired of asking about it. And it is just going to be one of those things that we're going to keep talking about, and it's going to incrementally go away unless somebody is able to bring something else up that hadn't been brought up previously. So I think that the NFL probably is going to go through their paces, and they're going to find out everything, because the NFL, boy, you talk about NFL security and all the people that they have under their employ that find out these things and investigate these things. It is very hard for me to believe that this has never been talked about before, ever, with Matt Patricia, whether he be an employee of the Patriots or the Lions. Somewhere along the line, somebody had to ask about this somewhere, or somebody had to have known about it and did some due diligence. I can't believe that this is something that would just go unchecked for 22 years without somebody saying something. It is unfortunate that more attention is brought to it now, because it's really hard to get those facts in order this far from the incident. But it's just that's the kind of questions that you're going to face on a day-to-day basis until somebody has more to offer. So to close that out, I think that Matt Patricia probably doesn't have anything happen to him now, because what are you going to do? You're going to punish him for something that, by the rule, he was acquitted of, and that never went to trial and no other evidence was presented. It's going to be hard for the NFL to say that he did something and they're going to apply discipline after the fact. But at the same time, you're going to have people asking for that, and maybe they're right, but we'll never know. The only people that know, there's only 3 people that know exactly what happened right at that moment, and we're only getting one person's account of that right now, and that's Matt Patricia. So it's going to continue to be that narrative until a different story is told.
Yep. And I've got the different side right now, because we all know Matt Patricia actually did it. He's probably going to hide everything and lie and say he's innocent. And his accuser is going to drop it because she couldn't handle the pressure and this and that. And everybody in society, not just on the team, but in society in general, is going to defend Matt Patricia when they know that that what actually happened is going to be hidden and swept under the rug and just forgotten about. It will never be erased. History will never be erased, especially scandals like that.
No, I mean, that doesn't go away.
Never.
It doesn't, and it's not going to. And the question becomes, who's going to talk about it? Because you can always look back at things and talk about them.
Even if anybody talked about it, they would still defend him.
Yeah, I mean, there's not going to be a lot of people that are going to be lining up to. There's probably not going to be a lot of people lining up to go against him, simply because there's only a couple people that would even entertain that thought, and that were actually there. And so, I think it'll blow over. The word that Golden Tate used, he was interviewed today, and he thinks that this will all blow over at some point because of the fact that there is a lack of information that's available right now, other than what's already been presented. So, this is monitor, but also at the same time, unless you know something that we don't, there's not a lot to be talking about with the situation other than reporting that this is something that everybody knows about, and then, that this is something that'll continue to go on after everything is said and done, unless somebody can find something different. You're not going to be able to tell us too much.
Right. So, that's the whole story. So, here we're hearing a little bit of background here, but let's move on.
Left sideline, 3 and he answers.
The Pistons have fired Stan Van Gundy completely, not only as head coach, but as team president.
I love it.
Now, the rumors that we heard, Brent Berry, a 14-year veteran, is rumored to join the front office, along with still general manager Jeff Bauer and owner Tom Gores. Tom Gores, out of nowhere, decides to consider, at first, making front office changes and still keeping Stan Van Gundy as head coach. And Stan Van Gundy didn't agree with it. He still wanted both positions. He decides it's either all or nothing. And Tom Gores decided, boom, it's going to be nothing for you. You're fired.
Yeah. Well, we talked about this for the better part of a month, and nobody thought that this was going to be the resolution. At least there weren't a lot of people that held that opinion that I know of.
Especially on Twitter.
And, yeah, Rod Beard, who's a very good reporter, Pistons beat, didn't think there was anything there because they hadn't brought anything forth. They hadn't talked about, there hadn't been anything that was revealed as to what they were talking about. And then the news comes that Stan Van Gundy and the Detroit Pistons had parted ways, which is a real nice PC way of saying that they fired him. It probably boils down to this, that Tom Gores asked Stan Van Gundy to abdicate one of his roles and concentrate on the coaching position, because I think that they would have preferred him to stay on the bench rather than stay as the team president. He didn't want that to happen, as you mentioned. He wanted both roles, and Tom Gores just couldn't get him to see the logic of splitting up, stopping the dual role and focusing just on the coaching aspect. And it's hard when somebody's asking you to basically be demoted to accept that. And I don't think that Stan Van Gundy felt he did the worst job as the team president. And when you're in the line of fire, you don't think that your decisions were the worst ones. You probably think that you did the right things. And Tom Gores basically saying to him, hey, we need you to concentrate on coaching. We're going to make some changes in the front office to make your job a little bit easier and give you one thing to concentrate on. And Stan Van Gundy just didn't want to do that. And Tom Gores wasn't going to move on that. He wasn't going to change his mind. And so because Stan Van Gundy didn't want to do what Tom Gores was asking, Tom Gores had him leave. And brings up a whole different bucket of options now, because now you don't have a team president, now you don't have a head coach.
Right.
That's
two.
Yeah, that's two positions you got to fill now. I think that there'll be some other restructuring in that front office. I don't think that Jeff Bauer's out of the woods quite yet as far as his job, because if you're going to bring in some new front office guys, they're not going to want to have the guy that was already there for what is probably at best a failing regime at this point, making those decisions.
Good
and
point.
Jeff Bauer, once everybody is put in place above him, very well may find his way out of the door as well.
Good point. We'll keep an eye on that too.
Yeah, ESPN reported a couple of different guys, as you mentioned, Brent Berry. Chauncey Billups has been continuously mentioned.
Yeah, Ed Smith mentioned that last Wednesday.
For that position. For a position, I should say. But head coach is obviously going to be their main point of concern, because you got to have one. You can operate without a team president. You can't operate without a head coach. So those positions are going to be and who's going to be filling them. Toronto, I think, does the Pistons a favor by firing Dwayne Casey. The NBA Coach of the Year gets fired by Toronto because they get swept out by Cleveland.
Oh, man.
The third year in a row, they've been eliminated by the Cavaliers.
Oh.
And Dwayne Casey, for all the work he did in Toronto, couldn't get past Cleveland. And the reality of the situation is that they didn't think that LeBron James and the Cleveland Cavaliers was a good enough excuse to keep Dwayne Casey on staff. And I think that the Pistons would be very wise to pursue him. Number one, you're not looking at a championship team. This is not a team that is ready to make a big step and start competing with the Bostons and the Clevelands of the world for the Eastern Conference title. So the people that say they want a championship coach, well, there's only so many of those to go around. And if you find any of those guys that are ready to be available for the Pistons, God bless you, because Greg Popovich, Steve Kerr, Brad Stevens, Tyronn Lue, none of those guys are leaving their jobs right now to come coach the Pistons.
No.
And those are the last four head coaches to win a title. Phil Jackson's the fifth coach in the last 10 years to win a title, and he's not even in basketball right now.
Because he's retired.
So,
the coaches that are...
who's this mythical championship coach that you think is going to come save the Pistons? Nobody.
Nobody.
So you look at Dwayne Casey's track record. He improved the team's record 6 out of the 7 years he was in Toronto.
And they still fired him.
It's
still a shock.
I think the Pistons would do real well to hire him because it's obvious that a new voice is needed. And for a guy who had some star power in Toronto, he had Kyle Lowry as his main centerpiece, and DeMar DeRozan, who played absolutely terrible in the series against Cleveland this year. He had some guys there that they built a pretty nice team, but they just couldn't get past Cleveland. And I mean, if you're going to tell me that you're going to be first, second, or third in the Eastern Conference every year and make it to the second or maybe the third round in the playoffs, if you're the Pistons, you should be taking that every day, all day. And I would hope that the Pistons would give a good, hard, long look at Dwayne Casey. Now, that doesn't mean some other teams aren't either. Because this coaching carousel that had really slowed to some sort of a halt is now back in full swing because Dwayne Casey, the reigning NBA Coach of the Year, is without a job. There's some other teams that are looking and thinking, boy, we're real close. We might be able to hire him and finally make that step. We might be able to get to the next level if we hire him. So the Pistons are not the only team. Obviously, they're going to be in the running for him. And I think that this is, again, something that isn't going to happen overnight. Tom Gores isn't a guy that jumps to a lot of conclusions very quickly. And I think that with the rate that he moved with on Stan Van Gundy, he can't afford to do that necessarily right now with the head coaching search, but I just don't think that they're going to wait as long to hire a new coach as they did to fire Stan Van Gundy. But it'll be interesting to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. There's other guys out there. Mike Budenholzer is one of them that's still without a job. They probably are giving him a call as well, engaging his interest, and we'll see what happens. It'll be very interesting, like I said, to see in the next couple of weeks what names are brought in to interview for this job.
Yeah, absolutely. I believe Dwayne Casey is the only option available as far as I'm concerned.
Probably your best option. I can tell you that much right now. But
yeah, that too.
I mean, there's, like I said, there's other teams that could be looking at who they got on the bench now and saying, gee, if we could get Dwayne Casey. Because 2 weeks ago, nobody thought that was possible. So maybe they thought they were good enough in that department. And now Dwayne Casey, who's your coach of the year in the league, is available. You got to rethink some have a lot to work on because they're not going to have a first-round pick, so they really don't have a whole lot to worry about there. Their team's already pretty much set in terms of the core of the roster, unless you're going to make a big trade. They've already done that. They made the trade for Blake Griffin last season. So they're probably not looking to make any more large trades. So that team is pretty much set. So that's going to help them a little bit because they're not going to be bringing in a head coach to a situation that there are going to be a lot of moving pieces. So, there's other candidates. Becky Hammond's one, assistant coach from the Spurs. Her name's popped up. Her name's popped up with Milwaukee as well.
A female
there are
coach,
options
too.
for Tom Gores, but it was just a real shock to see that Stan Van Gundy had been let go, especially with all the time that they had spent talking about that. Tom Gores and Stan Van Gundy continuously for 3 weeks straight talking about his role with the team before he was finally let go. So Tom Gores has a decision to make. He's got some front office pieces to put in place as well, and it very well could be that he's hiring a head coach before he's bringing guys in front office. And some people don't like that move because you're bringing in front office guys, and they've already got a staff set for you. I don't know if there's a lot of front office guys that would be willing to take the job if Dwayne Casey were to be hired that wouldn't like that, but sometimes people have their reasons for whatever they have going on, and maybe they don't want that coach hired. Maybe they want to be the one to do it. So the Pistons went from a relative position of comfort, having those positions filled, to being in kind of a scramble mode now to get all of those filled and get everybody going before the season gets started here. Training camps, everything else gets started, summer league, all that stuff's going to be coming pretty quick. So you got to have everything in place by the time that happens.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So that leads us to our segment, What's Your Grade? We're going to jumpstart here.
Pencils down, everyone. It's time to find out what's your grade.
And that's the Pistons firing Stan Van Gundy completely. See, that came out of nowhere, and it opens the door for Dwayne Casey. And we lost Buck Geno for a second. Yep.
Yeah, sorry about that. Got it for some reason, but you were talking about Stan Van Gundy getting fired.
Yeah, that in our What's Your Grade segment. That's the only event we're going to grade.
Yeah, there's not a lot of grades to be handing out. I mean, we could try to grade the Tigers, but they're just kind of putzing along.
In mediocrity.
For that grade, yeah. I mean,
we're going to get to them next.
Yeah, we'll get to them. But as far as the What's Your Grade, I mean, I think that firing Stan Van Gundy as a whole, we didn't really think that was going to happen. We thought that Stan Van Gundy might coach the team next year. We didn't expect him to stay maybe in his role as team president, or we probably thought he was going to accept some sort of reduced role. That wasn't the case. So my grade for this right now is a B, because I think that there was a change that had to be made. There's obviously something that had to change between now and the start of the next season, because the way that they were going, they hadn't been trending upwards. And there obviously needs to be changes made, because you don't want to be a team that's spending at or above the cap and missing the playoffs. That's one of the kisses of death in the NBA. So you can't be spending that much money to be bad. And they needed somebody, whether it be a new team president or a new head coach, to get the direction of the team trending upward. So by that token, I would say that they made the right move, because they weren't getting somebody that was going to be on board with the new vision. At the same time, the reason I give it a B is because it's significantly much later in the process than you would like to be letting your coach go. But like I said, the Raptors making that decision, and I've always said that until the playoffs are over, you never know who's going to be available. Never in my wildest dreams that I think that Toronto would fire Dwayne Casey, but they have, and they've presented the Pistons with yet another option, a very strong option to go out and get a new head coach. So that's why I'm grading it that way. But that Stan Van Gundy firing happened before Dwayne Casey was let go, so Tom Gore has had probably very little, if any, knowledge that Dwayne Casey was on his way out in Toronto. So I'm giving it a B because they needed a change, they needed a new voice. The only reason I'm giving it a B is just because it took that long for the decision to be made.
Yep. Ed Smith came up with the same reason. He graded it a B plus, and so will I, just to be fair. So that's our What's Your Grade segment. So for our audience, if they have a grade for the Pistons firing Stan Van Gundy, post that in the comment thing in this episode, and please don't go out of line. Now the Tigers.
That one is long gone.
Of course, as I mentioned, they're in mediocrity, 17-22, third place in the AL Comedy Central Division standings, losing 2 of 3 at the Texas Rangers, winning 2 of 3 against the over 500 Seattle Mariners, who are 22-17, which is a shock. Which jumps me to conclusion that both the Tigers and Mariners are mediocre teams, but especially the Tigers. But let's talk about Michael Fulmer. He's scuffling in his last 2 starts, and that's affecting his trade market value. He gets shelled by the Texas Rangers last week earlier, and then Saturday night in Game 2 of the doubleheader, he gets rocked for 6 runs against the M's, highlighted by a 3-run home run by Robinson Cano in the 5th inning with only 1 out. And that's not good. There were trade talk offers, rumors involving Michael Fulmer, and the Tigers were open to listen to trade offers involving him. And now this happens. What is happening here?
Well, it's really disappointing for Fulmer. I would say the Rangers game was less disappointing than the Mariners game, simply because he's pitching to a team on the back end of a straight doubleheader. So he's pitching to guys that literally were playing less than an hour ago, and he had a hard time missing some of those tired bats. So it wasn't a great outing for him. He hasn't had as you mentioned, the last 2 outings have been pretty rocky. And I don't know about his overall trade value, because obviously you don't want to base it on just 2 outings, but it doesn't help him if you're trying to move him. It doesn't help you if you're trying to move him, because it's hard to go to a team and say, hey, can you give us a really big package for this guy that just got bombed out by the Rangers and the Mariners? And it's a real tough decision, because you look at Michael Fulmer, and obviously he's your staff ace. He's playing for a team that right now isn't going to be in a position to contend at the end of the season. It's mind-boggling that they're only 3 games out of first right now with a 17-22 record, but that's because the AL Central is poop. It's real hard to look at that and say, boy, if we get rid of Michael Fulmer, the only marketable star that we're going to have next year, what should be the second season of a rebuild, is going to be Miguel Cabrera, who's going to be on the back end of his career. He's going to be starting to move, I would imagine, because Victor Martinez will be gone. He'll probably start playing a lot more at DH instead of in the field. So they'll start to wean him down off of the everyday first base role. And
he's been playing DH for a long time now already. Victor Martinez.
Well, yeah, I mean, Victor Martinez is, I don't remember the last time he played in the field, quite honestly. But you're looking at a team right now that, like I said, isn't ready to compete over a season's length. And you got Michael Fulmer here, who is still under team control. So you have that availability to trade him. And judging on what they got for Justin Verlander and other guys that they traded last year, Justin Upton being one of them, you would think that Michael Fulmer would demand a king's ransom just because of his age, because of his ability, and also his contract status. So it's real hard for the Tigers right now, because if you deal Michael Fulmer, you've got to be getting guys that are ready to make an impact. You can't be trading him for guys that are 2-3 years off as the centerpieces of those trades, because you're literally going to have nothing in your rotation if you're getting rid of Michael Fulmer. Jordan Zimmerman is a bust. They've been patching together the rotation this year with free agents and Francisco Liriano, Mike Fires, just guys that are scuffling to be on a roster. And heading into next year, you're going to have the number 1 pick in the draft this summer, and all signs indicate they're going to be taking another starting pitcher, whether it be Brady Singer from Florida or the kid from Auburn, Mize. That's not going to be someone that you can just throw into the rotation next year and expect him to compete at the level that Michael Fulmer is able to. So it's a difficult decision for the Tigers, but they have to listen to those offers, because if somebody's going to make a real crazy offer, you got to look at it and you got to weigh your options. And with him struggling the last 2 outings, I'm sure the phones have cooled a little bit, because teams aren't ready to just give up the farm for a guy who is having a hard time against the AL West. I mean, it's just not something that they're looking to do. So I think that as the season progresses, as the Tigers start to slowly dwindle out of what passes for contention in the AL Central, that's a topic that's going to become more and more of an issue. And Alavila is going to have to make that decision. And I don't know what he's going to decide, but unless they are able to get a supreme, and I mean supreme, package for Michael Fulmer, there's no reason to get rid of him right this second.
No.
Again, he's on a team that's not contending, but he's still under your control. He's still relatively cheap. And you just have to be able to have confidence that by the time you are ready to contend again, that he is still going to be on the roster. And that's really what they have to weigh their options with. Is Michael Fulmer going to be around here when we're ready to contend again? If you don't think the answer is yes, then you have to do yourself a favor and trade him.
Mm-hmm. And they won't be able to be contenders again, like you pointed out, until 2021, months ago.
Yeah, I mean, you're looking at least, I would say 2020 is probably the earliest that they're going to be ready to even entertain the thought of being a contender. And I'm not even talking about a World Series contender. I'm just simply talking about the division. And I know it's kind of a fool's gold record right now, only being 3 games out of first with 5 games under 500, because the Indians are scuffling a little bit. But
and they're in first place, and that's the AL Comedy Central.
Place. Yeah, I mean, they're 1 game over 500. They're in first place, but I just don't see the Tigers getting any better over the next 4 months to justify trading Fulmer for a huge package, which may end up setting them back even farther than where they're at right now. So I would love for the Tigers to get better. I would also love them to get as many good young arms in their system as possible. And that's how they built the last team, was pitching. Now, I know some of that was free agency, some of that was trades. You can also do it through the draft. It's a little bit more risky to do it that way. But if you're going to build up a team that's ready to contend, they've got the base there. They've got a good farm system built up as far as starting pitchers. They can always use more. Who couldn't? They're going to have a crack at one here in the draft. They're going to pick the number 1 overall player, who's in all likelihood going to be a pitcher. And you're hoping that those guys develop enough, plus the guys they already have in the minors right now, that in a year or two, they can look at that team and say, yep, we're ready to really contend and start making moves like a contender would, which is signing free agents for a little bit more money, dipping into the deep end of the pool as far as that's concerned, and bringing these young guys up and hoping that they have success at the major league level. So Michael Fulmer, he's going to be really a focal point of the conversation until July 31st, because until the Tigers are flatly out of it, I don't really expect them to make a move, but they have to be thinking about it every day, because if there's a team that's willing to make a crazy offer, like I said before, you got to listen to him because you're not going anywhere this year. And if you can get some major league ready talent for him now, you got to think about it.
Right. They got to give Michael Fulmer a chance to improve. See, let the other team see what Michael Fulmer's really made of. Not the rest of the team, but just Michael Fulmer. And that's what we're talking about here on this episode. So, that's all the teams. Those are all the teams we've covered. So that is episode 316 of the Week in Review. Before we sign off, we want to remind everyone to share this episode and our entire podcast on social media and have their friends share that as well, because we want to tell them that the Michigan Sports Truth podcast is searching for a wider audience that is fans of sports. So please spread the word about the Michigan Sports Truth podcast, its Facebook page, and its Twitter handle at Michigan_Truth. Buck, Geno, thanks again. Excellent job. We'll talk to you next week.
Very good. Thanks.
I'm Taylor Phillips. Follow me on Twitter at DT2Phillips. Follow Buck Geno on Twitter at BuckGeno, 3 I's for Roman numerals. We'll talk to you next week on episode 316 of the Week in Review. Thanks very much for listening, downloading, and sharing. TTFN, ta-ta for now.
The hosts of the Michigan Sports Truth podcast do not take any suggestions or criticism from any member of its audience on how it should be run. It is up to the host to decide what they want to cover. They also do not intend to be any amount of popular in any way, shape, form, or fashion. Additionally, the views of the audience, right or wrong, do not reflect the actual truth revealed on this program.
Mission complete.